We will never surrender America's sovereignty to an unelected, unaccountable global bureaucracy. America is governed by Americans. We reject the ideology of globalism, and we embrace the doctrine of patriotism.
The tide of history is on our side.
Every movement needs a story.
The populist nationalist movement, it kind of started here.
Every story needs a hero.
Dr. Blocher stood up, one man alone, against the establishment. He's Trump before Trump.
But in Switzerland, the search for the original populist goes back further still.
We need always the Wilhelm Tells in Switzerland.
William tells the story of a Swiss marksman who was fighting for independence in the early 14th century.
He risks something for his freedom.
The lonesome freedom fighter who takes his crossbow to kill the foreign tyrant.
Today, nationalists and globalists are battling for the soul of Swiss democracy and for control of its founding narrative.
Every Swiss citizen should be a Wilhelm Tell.
While from across the Atlantic, one man sees Switzerland as a blueprint for a wider European revolt.
You're going to see a revived and strong populist anti-establishment movement in all these countries.
I'm Benjamin Fischer, and I'm campaigning to take back control of our laws.
In the village of Volkenswil, in the canton of Zurich, there is a farm. Hello, how are you? For generations, the Fischer family have made their living off the land here. But times are changing.
A lot of small farms are gone last years to globalization.
Benjamin Fischer is the youngest of 5. He's gone into politics while his elder brother David tends to the farm. Their sister, Anna, is a businesswoman with 2 young children.
It would be nice if they have a childhood like I had, but that's not possible in our time today.
Benjamin is leader of the youth wing of the Swiss People's Party, the SVP. He calls it a nationalist conservative party. They've put forward an initiative to put Swiss laws above international treaties, such as the European Convention on Human Rights. In November, the proposal will be decided in a referendum.
In terms of the national sovereignty, we are losing a lot now.
Who do you think Switzerland is losing sovereignty to?
Europe?
The European Union.
Yes, because,
absolutely.
for example, the control of immigration. So we cannot deport hard criminal foreigners because of the European
In the EU.
Is immigration and criminal foreigners, is that a big issue around here?
No.
Yes?
I think so, yeah. It changed a lot. So when I was a kid, I never thought I'm in danger if I'm going out alone on the playground or something like that. But now I don't like it to let my little daughter, 5 years old, play outside.
Why not?
Like, you never know.
For Benjamin, the story of William Tell's rebellion against the establishment is as relevant today as it was 700 years ago.
the old Swiss, they said, we do not accept foreign judges, and now this is in danger. And the biggest problem is the establishment in Brussels and in the international organizations, which are not in democratic control.
Every place can't run like Switzerland. Direct democracy is extraordinary how you do it. You are the most free and the most prosperous nation in Europe.
Okay. My name is Roger Köppel. I'm the best elected member of parliament in the history of Switzerland, and entrepreneur and publisher. And earlier this year, I've invited the devil himself to Switzerland, which is Steve Bannon.
The Swiss system of government by referendum is unique in the democratic world. Rather than delegate most decisions to elected representatives, the Swiss people go to the polls several times a year. Proponents say it allows voters to disrupt entrenched financial and political interests. It's called direct democracy, and populists love it. Earlier this year, Donald Trump's former chief strategist came to Switzerland as part of his efforts to unite the right in Europe. I've come to Bern to meet the man who arranged the visit.
This is our parliament building. Here you got the peasants offering their product.
Yeah, there you've got the bankers.
There is the Swiss National Bank over there.
Yeah.
But this is like how it is in Switzerland, you know. It's very much down to earth.
Direct democracy.
Direct democracy.
Why don't you take us into the parliament and show us?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
This is the temple of politicians. Nobody is safe from the temptations of power.
Roger Köppel is sceptical about the Bannon project, but he does see his party's initiative to take back powers from Brussels in terms of a historic pan-European rebellion.
Sure.
It's another powerful story.
I would say what's happening right now reminds me of the Reformation in the 16th century. In those times we had an international Vatican which was considered to misuse his power, to misuse the money of the people, to misuse also his spiritual mission. And then all these reformators came up all over the place. Some of them were complete nuts, but some of them were intelligent, sensitive people like Mr. Calvin, Mr. Zwingli, Mr. Luther, and the movement behind was real. And I think we see a similar development now in Europe, that many people are just think that the direction of politics in the last 10 years or 15 years is wrong, and they have not been asked about this direction.
Switzerland is not a member of the European Union, but its agreement with the bloc means it's a rule taker, not a rule maker. The legendary marksman would not have approved.
William Tell symbolizes the spirit of resistance against foreign laws and against foreign rule, but of course we would never, even in the darkest moments, consider to shoot Jean-Claude Juncker with our crossbows.
In every story, the hero must have an adversary.
You can see President Trump. Every day he struggles with what we call the swamp. That's a permanent political class of consultants and lobbyists and donors and multinational corporations and big banks and their political running dogs.
And that's where we meet the other Switzerland. The Switzerland of supranational organizations, the UN, the World Trade Organization, of international banking and high finance. Once upon a time, such institutions were accepted as part of the international rules-based order. But that was before the populist revolt against shadowy elites.
My name is André Kudelski. I'm chairman and CEO of the Kudelski Group and chairman of the Swiss Innovation Agency.
Mr. Kudelski is also on the steering committee for the Bilderberg Group. Bilderberg is a secretive talking shop for global elites. It attracts conspiracy theorists.
Bilderberg is heavily involved in the EU plan and helped hatch it.
The group publishes lists of attendees and topics for discussion and not much else. This year, their number one concern was populism in Europe.
I cannot comment on a Bilderberg conference. I can just say it's a place where you have people from different origins that discuss about subjects that are of common interest.
And this year you discussed populism.
That was on the agenda.
Yes. Can you tell me about what conclusions you came to?
There is,
anything that was discussed?
First, there is never a conclusion in Bilderberg.
The trouble with the secrecy surrounding the Bilderberg Group is it gives rise to conspiracy theories about what you guys are up to. Are you plotting a new world order?
Certainly not.
No? A one world government?
What an idea.
But it is a collection of the elites, isn't it? And perhaps in a world where the wealthiest 1% own 50% of the wealth, that's part of the driver, isn't it?
So I really believe that one of the role of the politician is not polarizing one part of the population against another part.
Dr. Blocher, he stood up against the Swiss establishment, against the European establishment, against the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal. They vilified him.
I am Christoph Blocher, a Swiss industrial man and a political man, and I fight since 30 years that Switzerland keep out of the Union of Europe.
Here's a true story. In 1992, Switzerland was on track to join the EU. Then, along came a rich industrialist who forced a referendum. Against the odds, the Swiss people said no. Mr. Blocher is now semi-retired, but from his decades of campaigning, the original populist learnt two lessons. One, offensive imagery can boost your popularity. And two, voters don't like being told what to think.
The people see better than the responsible person. They are better than the experts.
This idea that the people know better than the experts, the politicians, some people call this populism, and it scares them.
They have said always that is populism, but I don't know what is that, the populism. That is...
Some people would say that's you.
Yes, yes. That's clear. Then it is a good thing.
Steve Bannon called you Trump before Trump.
Yeah, it's good.
If you want your freedom, if you want your prosperity, you're going to have to go and take it. We're going to have to win election after election after election until they finally say, no more.
I'm Flavia Kleiner, and I'm the populist's worst nightmare.
In a community centre in Zurich, the liberal globalists are plotting their counterattack. Doesn't really feel like the establishment. Operation Libero is a group of activists who campaign against populist initiatives. They say they want their country to abide by its international obligations. Steve Bannon was here in Zurich earlier this year. Did any of you go and hear him speak?
No way to get tickets.
No way to get tickets? Would you have gone if you could?
No, never.
Would any have gone? You would have gone. You would have gone. Why?
You should know your enemy.
Right. In 2016, Operation Libero helped defeat an anti-immigration bill. The movement's founder says the populist rhetoric is a smokescreen for the establishment of an illiberal democracy.
Like Blocher, he's a genius, a political genius. He managed to put his people in practically every institution in the country. He's super influential. He's buying newspapers. We think It's to establish some sort of a tyranny of the majority by reducing the influence and the power of other institutions than the voice of the people. And what all sounds pretty nice, I understand, it's about self-determination and stuff, it basically risks our liberal order.
But the liberal order is precisely the thing that these populists want to overthrow. They've had enough of it.
No, but what we see is that they basically claim that they want the real freedom, but they don't. Did you listen to the right-wing populists here in Switzerland? They always say, we, the Swiss, we are Wilhelm Tell, fighting against these foreign judges. That's what we do. And I mean, that's not actually what it is about.
You mentioned William Tell.
Yeah.
Who is William Tell in this story?
In my opinion, it's freedom-loving citizens who don't want despotism. They don't want the tyranny of the majority, but they want reliable liberal institutions.
So you're William Tell?
Yeah, very much.
The story of William Tell is largely myth, not history. But that doesn't matter. In the 19th century, the Tell legend was considered so subversive that performances were censored for fear they would stoke nationalist sentiment. The point is this: stories have power. Who is the hero and who the oppressor? The answer to that question depends on who gets to own the narrative.